how you can rent out your property in Singapore without the need of a property agent. Hi there, my name's Fraser and I'm your property consultant and advisor. Hit the like and subscribe down below so you can get notified whenever I upload new content. So this will be a brief and somewhat rough guide on how to go about renting out your own property without the need for a real estate agent. FYI, this guide will only apply to renting out private property because HDB has their own procedure and portal for renting out property. So here's the quick checklist which we'll go through together one by one. First things first, we need to know what our asking rent is. And to understand that, what we need to do is take a look at the most recent transactions that have happened, as well as other listings that are currently active. There are several places you can look to find this information, but to keep this guide brief, I'll just share a couple. For recent transaction history, you can find both of these at Property Guru and 99.co property portals. To find out what rent your competition is asking, you can also find this out at Property Guru and 99.co too. Make sure to set the filters to the same specifications as your unit that you are looking to rent out. So now you've worked out the asking rent, it's time to prepare your unit for marketing and to find our tenant. Prepare your house for some nice beauty shots to post online. You don't need amazing photography skills here, just make sure the photos are well lit, because nobody wants to stay in a cave. Make sure your house is free of clutter so that the tenants who come to view can imagine themselves living in the space. And make sure your photos are taken in landscape, because personally, I find portrait-style photos take away from the sense of space in the room. So landscape is always a win for me. Now you've got your photos, time to put those pictures online. Here there are a few ways to go about this. Some methods are completely free and others cost a little bit of money. It all depends on the quality of the tenant you are looking for and how many eyes you want on your listing. Property Guru is the #1 most popular site that comes to mind for anyone searching for property in Singapore. And they know this. However, if you're going to list your property on Property Guru, you're going to need to do this through an agent because to have an account, you need to be a registered agent with CEA. On the other hand, 99.co has an option for direct owners to place their listings for free. Here, you're also given the option to choose if you'd like your listing to be open to other agents' marketing as well. The downside here is 99.co will give you fewer impressions than Property Guru could potentially give you. There are also online marketplaces like Facebook and Carousel. But for my own personal reasons, I would just advise against this because there's a high potential for things to go bad. So just proceed at your own risk here. Once your listing has been finalized and is live, you can prepare your documents. So once you found that tenant, then you'll have them ready to go. Here are the documents that we'll need to look for: the tenancy agreement and the checklist for lease of residential property for compliance with Immigration Act and Women's Charter, otherwise known as PC01-20. Both these forms can be found simply by searching CEA forms online and navigating to the correct forms. Once you've downloaded the tenancy agreement, go through it and remove or add clauses as you deem fit. For example, if you're opposed to smokers, then you might want to add a clause that prohibits a tenant from smoking in your property. For Form PC01-20, fill in the details accordingly whilst also making sure to check and document the validity of the tenant's immigration status and cross-check those details against their passport. The documents don't need to be submitted, they are there for safekeeping in case any disputes come up later on in the tenancy. Once you manage to find a tenant, your next step would be to meet with the tenant to collect the security deposit and go through and sign all the documents that you've already prepared. Once all has been signed, note the date of agreement on the tenancy agreement, because within 14 days from that date, your new tenant will need to visit IRAS online stamp duty portal to pay the appropriate stamp duty fee applicable to this lease. Once paid, have the tenant send you the copy of the stamp duty certificate for your safekeeping. Finally, once all that is settled, you can proceed to collect the first month's rent in advance. The last step in the process is just to simply hand over the unit. But if you want to take extra steps to be more cautious, make sure that you have taken photos of the entire unit to document the condition of the unit at the beginning of the lease, including any defects. This is just a precaution in the event that any disputes come up as to the condition of your property when the tenant hands the unit back to you at the end of the lease. Their security deposit will serve as collateral in the case where there's any need to reinstate the property back to its original condition as it was at the beginning of the lease. This video is just to serve as a general checklist guide of sorts for those who might just be curious about the process, or for people who might be considering bypassing the middleman to avoid having to pay an agent fee. I would say though, there are still many nitty-gritty details not mentioned here, and much of it can be simply solved by leveraging on the experience of a professional property consultant, as every rental case will have their own nuances. Of course, I'm going to caveat this video with a message to always seek advice from a professional property consultant. Number one, not only are you going to make the process so much easier and save yourself time, but number two, a good agent will handle far more than simply just paperwork. They'll act as the barrier between yourself and the tenant, so you don't even need to directly deal with any rental matters yourself. Just sit back and receive your rental income while you get periodic updates from your agent. And of course, if you're someone who travels very frequently or lives overseas, you won't ever need to be present. With the right representative that you trust, your property management needs will all be taken care of. So if you like this video, check out some of my other videos, and maybe you'll find something else useful. And if you want to get in touch with me personally to learn more about how best to rent out your property, you can connect with me directly via any of the social media links in the description below. So until then, ciao for now.